Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Today we are joined by director Matthew Testa, whose new film Stealing Magic is just hours away from having its world premiere at the Tribeca Festival. First three shows sold out. Rush tickets still available for Friday, June 5th at 5 p.m., Saturday morning, June 6th, 11:45 a.m., Sunday evening, 8 p.m. If you want to try to get into tickets to that, show up early. You might be able to get rush tickets, but they have added a fourth show Sunday morning, June 14th, 11:45 a.m. Matthew, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Thank you. Thank you. We're also
So
going to be at DC Docks in Washington on the 12th at 8 p.m.
awesome.
So
So you
if you
can,
live in the DC area,
you're in the
come see
DC
us
area,
there.
go to DC
Yeah.
Docs. Set up the film for people. What's the premise of Stealing Magic?
Well, this is a film about a group of magicians who become citizen detectives and led by a magician named Andi Gladwin, who's a well-known magician and co-founder of the largest magic store in the world, Vanishing Inc., who sort of becomes like a Jason Bourne, accidental Jason Bourne of the magic world when he launches an investigation into the online pirates who are stealing magic tricks from the top magic creators in the business. It hurts the industry like a lot of forms of piracy due to other businesses. You know, the film industry and the music industry are hurt by piracy. But the magic industry is small. It can't handle that type of a financial hit. So Andy in the film pretty much takes it upon himself to try to figure out who these bad actors are so that he can identify them and stop them.
It's such a fun and interesting story, and it's such a clever way that you tell it. How did you first hear about this story, and when along the process was it where you decided, you know what, this would make an excellent documentary?
Yeah, well, my good friend Ethan Smith, who I grew up with, we met in sixth grade, and we made a local cable access TV show on Long Island together in high school. He works in Hollywood on big films, and he was working on a film with Randy Pitchford, the owner of the Magic Castle, someone who's very involved in the magic industry. And Randy knew about this story. Randy knew about Andi Gladwin's work, anti-piracy work, and Andy had already I don't want to give too much away, but Andy had already done some pretty amazing things trying to track somebody down who he thought was the prime suspect in this. And Ethan told me this story and said, you know, do you think there's a documentary here? And I thought the premise was incredible. The premise of a magician going toe to toe with these online pirates who may themselves be magicians. There was a lot of evidence that they seemed to know a lot about magic. So I love the idea of these magicians sort of squaring off against each other and this kind of potential spy caper that could result. And that is very much how the story ended up going.
Talk to me about Andi Gladwin. When you first met him, what was he like? And as you got to know him and follow his story, what was your take on him as you got to watch him work and turn into this private investigator, super spy?
Andy's a really interesting guy. You know, I think like a lot of magicians, he's very dedicated. You have to be really, I would say even obsessive to be a great magician. It takes so much work and practice. And I really came to understand that making the film by looking at him and how hard he works and meeting other magicians and seeing what it takes, you know, to create a new magic trick, to perfect a magic trick, to bring it to market, to perform it. And he really helped me appreciate how much work goes into it. And that I think is the heart of the film. The stakes of the film are that these human powered art forms are really vulnerable in the digital age, but they bring so much joy and wonder to people. They're very important to protect. And I just loved Andy's idealism around that he was so committed because he didn't have to do this. I mean, he's a successful magician and performer. He's an author. He creates his own magic work. And because not all magicians do create their own work, but he does. And he really didn't need to sort of interrupt his life by going around chasing criminals and putting himself at some level of risk. But he was willing to do it because he believed in it, and that has never faltered. And I really admired that kind of idealism, and I think it reminded me of what it takes often to be a documentary filmmaker. You believe in something, and you have to be really persistent to try to tell that story. And I think I saw that in Andy, and I really admired that about him.
Magicians are trained in misdirection and deception and keeping secrets. How did Andy and his team use those exact skills to turn into cyber detectives?
That's a great question. I mean, it's hard to talk too much about that without giving away spoilers, but I will say they certainly did. Magicians are smart, the pirates are smart, and here's the thing. I was just thinking about this earlier. The problem is that the pirates are not playing by the rules. I mean, they're working in the shadows. They're using the tools of the internet to hide and to use those tools of misdirection that are illegal. Stolen credit cards, stolen IDs, fake IDs. You can do a lot on the internet. I wouldn't even call it magic. It's just if you're willing to break the law, you can hide and you can commit crimes. The magicians and the people who Andy ends up working with, they're all ethical. And so the playing field's not leveled except by Andy's intelligence and the magician's ability to use misdirection and things to gain access to certain kinds of information, which you really have to watch the movie to see.
You kind of touched on this earlier, but I want you to kind of go a little bit more in depth to it. To non-magicians, stealing a trick might seem trivial. But your film shows that it threatens the entire art form. Can you explain why it's and what is financially and emotionally at stake for these creators when their secrets are leaked online?
That's a great question. And it really comes back to the idea that it's not as simple as, oh, a magician saw another magician do a trick and stole that trick and then went and performed that too, which happens. And there were scenes that we had in the movie that dealt with that. But this is kind of a different thing. So we ended up cutting a lot of those scenes out because this is really about the people who create new magic tricks and bring those tricks to market. And one of the things I learned early on that surprised me that lay people may not understand is that a lot of magicians don't create their own tricks. They're really more the interpreters. They're like the singers, and the magic creators are the songwriters, if you will. And so the magicians are the performers who have the patter. They have, their methodology of performing the trick. But very often the gimmick, the concept, the genius behind the actual trick and the mechanics that make it work come from these people who sort of labor in the shadows, who are these geniuses who sometimes spend years coming up with new tricks. And to make a living doing that, they sell those tricks on online stores like Vanishing Ink. And what's happening with the pirates is that they create online stores that look like legitimate magic stores. It's kind of hard to tell that they're not at first, but they're selling those same tricks for pennies on the dollar. Now, these magic creators, they don't have huge margins. It's not like, Rolex and somebody's making fake Rolex watches. Well, Rolex can kind of absorb that hit, right? But a magic creator who's writing maybe, 500 books or writing a book that sells 500, 1,000 copies in a run, or a magic, creator who's selling, a trick deck of cards or whatever. They don't have those kinds of margins. They can't absorb that kind of hit. And what happens is those creators start to get out of the business. Magic stops progressing. And that is the fear that's driving Andy, that if magic doesn't advance, the art form dies, and then we lose this incredible gift.
Without spoiling the film, what was the most surprising or genuinely nerve-wracking moment you experienced while filming this global pursuit?
Again, that's hard to do
Yeah,
without a spoiler, but we ended up, in real time chasing clues around the world. And we really didn't know, it's a thrilling part of the movie, and we really didn't know what country we were going to be in the next few hours, in the next day. And we didn't know how dangerous these pirates could be. So we didn't know where we would end up, what the laws would be there, and who these people were should we end up confronting them. And that was really the goal, was that we were following clues that we hoped would lead us right to their doorstep. But we really didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And there were just some moments along that chase that were pretty nerve-wracking, where, there's a magician who ended up working with us, who goes undercover, and it was it was pretty dicey at that point. We really didn't know whether we were going to end up getting arrested or something, and who we would call or what we would do if that happened. So I would say it was somewhere in there.
Similar question. It might be the same answer. What was the biggest challenge you faced in putting the documentary together? Was
Well,
that
I think the
was that
biggest
it?
challenge with sorry.
Was that it? That you didn't know the danger and you didn't know where you were going to be the next day, or were there other challenges?
No, I mean, that was actually, really fun and exciting. And that's when you feel like, okay, we've got a story here, and this is really coming together. Because I was going to say the hardest thing is not knowing if you're ever going to get any moments like that, or not knowing if you're ever going to get meaningful clues that will make this an interesting investigation. And I think, when you start a project like this that is a real time investigation, you don't know what the story is going to be. I mean, that's true for many documentaries. But I think, you see a lot of documentaries getting made now that are reliant on maybe their biopics or their, archival and their historical. And you know what the story is going to be when you start, for the most part, when you start to tell a movie like that, and you know the footage you're going to use, you have access to all of that. With something like this, you you don't. There's just the hope that this is going to be some madcap caper that leads to a satisfying result. But you don't know how long it's going to take to get there, and you don't know the twists and turns. You just hope for them, and you try to produce things in a way that, leads you in that direction, or opens up the story for those things to happen. But you can't control them. So I think that was really the hardest part is knowing, okay, is there going to be enough movie here to fill 90 or so minutes? And that was why, as I referenced earlier, we ended up, I thought, okay, well, let's try to do a survey of other magicians, like famous magicians, talk to them about when they had their work stolen, so that we might have to have these anecdotes peppered throughout the movie to fill the movie. But luckily, and those are great stories, but we cut them because we had such a great investigative tale to tell, and it filled the time beautifully, and that's like all you can hope for.
The magic community is notoriously secretive. How hard was it for you to get behind the curtain access, and how did you convince Penn and Teller and Joshua J to participate? Was Magic Castle's involvement the secret sauce? Did that open the doors and make it kind of easier for you?
It helped a lot to have Randy Pitchford as our producer and supporter in this. He, because he owns the Magic Castle, because he has so much goodwill in the magic industry, and this predates his owning the Magic Castle too. I mean, he's got a long history in the magic world, and a lot of respect. He really helped open lots of doors, particularly Penn and Teller. But I think Andy also is very well known in the community. It's a small community. People know each other. There's a lot of mutual respect. And I found, for the most part, in terms of me being a layperson coming into the world, I mean, certainly I had Andy and Randy opening doors for me, and that clearly helped. But people were very open, very interested in sharing, I wouldn't say the secrets, but letting me in and showing me around the world. I think they understand that, any interest, or pretty much any interest, is good interest. And there are untold stories. I think, like, magic sometimes is the redheaded stepchild of entertainment. You think of like magicians at kids parties and things like that. It doesn't always get its due. And I think magicians understand that. And so they were very open in sharing, like, how much work goes into this, what their world is like. And I'm very grateful for that, and I think actually not knowing much about magic was an advantage to me. Coming in as a layperson, really open-eyed and asking basic questions, was useful in the sense that, I wanted to make a film that would speak to lay people and not just to the magic community. I wanted magicians to appreciate it as well, but I needed to explain things to the broader audience. So being a member of that broader audience, lay audience, was helpful, and I think, allows one to come in a little bit, naively, and people who are well intentioned will kind of respond to that by taking you in and saying, "Oh, okay, let me show you," you know. And I found that with pretty much everybody I interacted with in the magic world.
How did you approach the visual style of the film? Did you use any specific techniques to make the documentary feel like a high stakes thriller?
Yeah, we did. I mean, I always want my work to look cinematic wherever I can, even if we're doing handheld work. So um, we used, an anamorphic frame, sometimes anamorphic lenses, like for the recreations that we did. Um, I use prime lenses a lot, even when we're doing verite work and running around with handheld cameras. And you get that shallow depth of field, you get more of a cinematic look. And also, I think in color timing the film, we were thinking about certain films, well, similarly in the editing and in the music. I was thinking a lot about Ocean's 11. I was thinking a lot about thrillers from the 70s. And so there are some shots that are kind of quoting that genre. And also, I have an eclectic background. I've made a lot of different kinds of films, but I've done some true crime, so I was able to kind of draw on that experience a bit and play a little bit in that genre space as well. Yeah, and then I think with the interviews, it's hard now to make an interview stand out. So we tried to do something I wouldn't say extremely different, but we had three cameras, which is more involved than a single or two camera setup, with a third camera on a slider, and we tried to put everybody in these magical environments, and finding those was a lot of fun. So we did some interviews at the Magic Castle, but we also did some other magic venues, and then a weird, interesting like curio shop in Las Vegas and things like that, just to give things, a certain richness that wouldn't be there if we just did like a seamless backdrop or something like that.
So as we're talking now, we're just hours away from your film's world premiere at Tribeca. Uh, when audiences walk out of the theater tonight, what do you hope they take away with them? What do you hope they're talking about? What do you hope they're carrying with them as they head off into the streets of New York City?
I hope people are inspired by Andy's work, and that you know you can sort of stand up for the thing that you believe in your corner of the art world or whatever world it is, and actually make a difference if you're persistent and you care, and that it's worth doing that, and that these human powered analog art forms are really worth protecting. That and particularly now, I think two things are happening right now in society where, and I don't mean to bash all things digital, because I don't, that's not my thing at all. And I think actually the internet has helped magic a lot in many respects. But the scourge of piracy is harmful, and I think the ability to access readily available quick hit entertainment is also harmful to magic and other similar analog art forms that take years and years of practice and dedication. And so I think it's important that we remember that an art form like magic takes all that kind of work, is worth protecting, is worth preserving. And I think we're seeing people who are seeking that kind of entertainment out right now as an alternative to looking at things on their phone or whatever it may be. Because there's really nothing else like it, like watching a person deceive you or play an incredible piece of music on a stringed instrument, And I feel like there's sort of, the pendulum is maybe swinging a little bit in that direction right now in society.
So where can people find out more about your film? We know it's playing at Tribeca. We know it's playing at DC Docs. If people want to find out about upcoming screenings at future film festivals, and then the eventual streaming release, do you have a website, social media? Where can they learn more about
Yeah,
Stealing
you can follow us on Instagram, Stealing Magic, and what is our website? I think it's Stealing Magic Film or Stealing Magic Movie. I'm gonna have to look it up. It's one of those. Um, But yeah, you can find us. Also, you can follow Andi Gladwin at andigladwin.com. It's ANDIGLADWIN. And yeah, well, Google Stealing Magic and you'll find our website.
All right. Well, it's an amazing documentary. It's called Stealing Magic. This is Matthew Testa. Matthew, thank you so much for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.